aspects of this fellowship, because as Samrat said, today we aim to go a little bit deeper, and therefore I will keep my introduction to this fellowship quite short, and I will go through it quite quickly. And Samrat, if I'm not mistaken, the applicants have access to the recording of the previous webinar. So if anyone needs to go back more into the rules, mobility rules and other rules related, and the finances related to this fellowship, then please refer back to the previous webinar. But today we are actually expecting you to be in the middle of writing, and hopefully already towards the end of the writing, although I know the end of the writing never comes sooner than the deadline of the submission. So maybe, Mega, you can comment on it later how your schedule was for writing this fellowship. But and therefore my presentation will focus on the different parts of the application itself, and I will focus on the narrative part, meaning the part B of the application. But first, a little bit of an introduction. So what we're talking about is actually a part of the European framework program. It is a 9th framework program funded from the budget of the European Union, called Horizon Europe, and it has a structure like this. We have 3 pillars, and Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions are part of the first pillar of Horizon Europe. And there are many Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, but the postdoctoral fellowships are in some ways a classic postdoctoral fellowship, in the sense that it supports the time when a researcher who has just completed or recently completed their PhD degree is becoming an independent researcher. So the postdoctoral fellowship is a tool to enable the fellows to become independent researchers, to be able to lead their own teams in the future. And this postdoctoral fellowship is, in that sense, quite classical postdoctoral fellowship. But it has some aspects that make it unique, and mostly the aspects are related to a strong focus on career development. So it is not only about carrying out a research project, which, however, is then, of course, the most important part of it, but it's also very much about skills development, both scientific skills, transferable skills, but it is also about learning and doing, how to disseminate your research results, how to communicate to the wider public about your research, to develop connections that enable you to have a successful career after the fellowship, both in the academic but also the non-academic sector. So this is quite important as well for this type of fellowship. And most importantly, it is a mobility fellowship. So it takes you from one country, for example, India, to another country, for example, Finland, in case of Dr. Mega's fellowship. So there are 2 types of the postdoctoral fellowships: European fellowships, where the host institution where you will be conducting your fellowship is situated in Europe, but also the global fellowship, which enables, for example, European researchers to go to India for their postdoctoral fellowship, or to any other country in the world, and in that case return also to Europe after that. We will be focusing on the European fellowship. We will be talking about the classical, usually 2-year fellowship with the aim of conducting independent research in an European research organization, and having maybe some secondments to other organizations in the same or other countries, and possibly including a placement. We will not be focusing on the aspect of placement, but feel free to pick it up in the questions later on. So the placement offers up to 6 months of additional time for your fellowship for settling in a non-academic organization. This is the funding is based on unit costs, and it gives usually quite a nice, like generous salary in the country of your destination, and also money for research, communication, and training. What we will be focusing on starts from this slide. So today we will be talking about applying for the postdoctoral fellowship. And this is a slide that I partially already showed in my previous webinar. It's a list of useful materials, but I should have said mandatory materials. Because to write a competitive proposal, you must be on top of your information. You must know what is expected from you. And these documents on the left side are official documents from the European Commission that are more or less a mandatory reading material. Since our previous webinar, some more very, very useful materials have emerged, and I have linked them here. So the Radiance project, that is a cooperation project between people like myself, the national contact points for Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions in Europe and beyond. We have a project where we try to develop additional materials that will help both the NCPs and our clients, the researchers. So the Radiance project has published a very, very useful handbook for the call of Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowships 25, and a novelty. This has not been done before, so this is the first time that we do a thing like that, is a submission guide. And the submission guide is a very practical guide how to actually go through the submission. So all the screenshots of the funding and tender portal, what to write where, how to go about it. So this is extremely practical, very, very useful. And I heartily recommend you to use this submission guide because it makes your life so much easier. Handbook is about writing the application. It also focuses on part B, the narrative part, and it is more or less like a application form with some helpful commentary. In addition to these sort of mandatory documents, and when I say mandatory, of course, they are mandatory in the sense that they are highly reliable, very, very useful, and developed with you can really trust what is Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowships, they are actually the largest postdoctoral fellowship call in the world. Every year, around 10,000 applications are submitted, and therefore there are every year 10,000 or more interested people out there writing these proposals. So the internet is actually full of all kinds of useful materials, but there you need to exercise your critical reading and critical thinking skills and try to discern what is really trustworthy and what are just some urban legends that are also circulating, and also what is outdated. So these documents that are listed here, they are not outdated. They are from official sources or from the Radiance project, which is also very, very reliable. And for other materials, there are some materials that are doubtful in quality. Nevertheless, I will recommend you to, for example, if you are looking for examples of projects, because sometimes it is very, very useful to look how other people have written some sections in the proposal. And some applicants have uploaded their full applications, some on the internet. You can find them with some skillful search. And some applicants have analyzed their experience and written some tips and tricks for other applicants. So all of these materials could be very useful in your process. And one of the easiest ways, for example, is to search for these documents on ResearchGate. Many researchers have used this medium to share their experience. So going forward with my presentation, I will briefly remind you how the application looks like. So it consists of two parts, two main parts. Part A, which is the administrative forms, and Part B, which is the narrative part. And the Part B itself is divided into two sub-documents. Altogether, they form the coherent full proposal. Document 1 has only 10 pages. It is structured according to the evaluation criteria, excellence, impact, implementation, and has a very strict page limit of maximum 10 pages. And then document 2 does not have a page limit, but there are sections that are quite strict there. For example, there is a 5 pages, up to 5 pages for the CV, then some tables for the capacities of the participating organizations, mainly your host organization, but also your secondment or placement hosts, and then some other information that we will tackle. So this is what we are talking about, and we will be focusing on the part B. This doesn't mean that part A is not important. It is quite important, but I will touch upon only the one aspect of part A today, and this is the ethics and security. I will just give you some few tips about ethics and security, because I think it is something that might if overlooked, if you overlook this part, it might come back and bite you towards the end of your process. So ethics and security, but otherwise we concentrate on part B, and we will be mainly looking at document B1 with excellence, impact, and implementation. So the evaluation criteria are the criteria that the evaluators will use to evaluate your proposal, and therefore every word and every sentence in these evaluation criteria are important. You can't overlook anything, you can't reject any part of it, because the evaluators, they have choice. They have to evaluate your proposal based on these evaluation criteria. And for example, if you think that maybe gender aspects are not so important and you will skip that part, the evaluators have no choice but to deduct points because you have not covered it. So make sure that you have covered everything from your evaluation criteria. This is how the evaluation looks like. This is a schematic that shows you how the process is, and I will very briefly explain it. So each proposal is read by at least 3 experts. Usually it is exactly 3, but sometimes it is necessary to include also additional experts if there is a need. And then first in the E, you don't have to, of course, remember any of these acronyms. So in the individual evaluation phase, each of these experts will read and evaluate the proposals allocated to them individually. They will not discuss it with anyone. They will just submit their comments about these projects completely on their own. And after that, each of the small groups of individual evaluators will have one person who is nominated as a rapporteur, so someone who summarizes these individual evaluation results, and the rapporteur then combines the 3 individual evaluations into a consensus report. Then the other experts have to agree with this, so it's really a consensus between the 3 evaluators, and then they submit the consensus report to the Commission for quality checking. The Commission has additional evaluators. They also recruited from among researchers who are more experienced, who have been evaluated several times themselves, and these are appointed as what are called vice chairs. So they help the Commission in quality control and supervision of the individual evaluators. And finally, after quality control, the Commission will finalize the evaluation summary report. So the evaluation is based on a consensual agreement between 3 evaluators, and you will also receive the evaluation summary report after the evaluation process has taken place. The evaluators will score Marie Skłodowska-Curie proposals up to 1 decimal. And to be funded, you need to be either excellent or very good. If some of your scores are good, it might feel good, but it already kills your chance to be funded. So it is quite competitive, so you need a score well above 4 to be considered for funding. So it is, again, of utmost importance not to neglect any of the evaluation criteria. And now to the first real lesson from today, which I think is a very important aspect that many applicants to funding programs somehow forget. So you are not writing your proposal for some anonymous AI or some anonymous machine that will evaluate. You are actually writing for the evaluator, because the evaluators will be the readers of your proposal, and you will have to understand how they work, who they are, to be able to do your job well. So first and foremost, evaluators are researchers in your field. They know the research. They know also what is normal in your field. So, for example, we all know that research fields have very different requirements, very different criteria. So maybe in life sciences you are expected to have more publications in information technology or informatics. Your main dissemination method might be participation in important conferences. In humanities, you might be writing monographs instead of publishing many papers. So evaluators know this. So you don't have to justify. You can rely on them to know the system in your field of research. But they don't know the system in India, for example. They don't know if you mention in your CV, for example, that you were selected for this important award, or you received a certain grant, or something like that. They don't know what it means. So, and they also might not know what is the rule in your country of destination. So, for example, what is the normal system in Estonia or Finland compared to Romania or Spain? So don't expect them to know local specificities, but do expect them to know your research field in general. So one evaluator will read approximately 10 proposals. This is very good, because in that way they can get a feeling of what is good, what is bad. And this means that they read 10 quite different proposals, and they must be able to evaluate proposals that are not in their narrow field of research, but in a slightly broader field of research. So they are generalists rather than specialists. And you must take that into account and avoid using some very specific lingo or some very specific acronyms in your text, because you risk that the evaluators do not understand what you're writing about. But the most important lesson should be that evaluators are human. Think of them not as evaluating machines, not as people who have a lot of time available to dedicate on your proposal in particular. They have little time. They are doing this on top of their normal job usually. They might have to read the proposals in non-ideal conditions. They might be on a plane. They might be in home office with their small children, etc. So respect that they don't have so much time to dedicate, and make it easy and pleasant to read your application. And also make yourself stand out from the crowd. How to do it? Raise interest, impress the reader. Try to have a good story that you present in your proposal. So one of the ideas really, which is easy to say, not so easy to implement actually, is to think of your proposal as a kind of narrative that you are presenting. So you are telling a story, you're telling your career story to the evaluator. It should be personal, not too personal, but personal in a professional way, and leave an impression with the evaluator that you are passionate about what you are going to do, that you know what you are going to do, you know where you want to go as a researcher and how to get there. So think of the evaluator when you write your application. So now let's go deep into the proposal, and I will start, as I promised, very briefly with the ethics and security issues section in the proposal. You will remember from the proposal structure that you have two places where these issues come up. First, there is part A, the administrative part where you have ethics and security questions and room to fill that in with a narrative. But then if you have additional information, more to say, then you can also use part B2. You don't have to use part B2 if you don't have additional information. So how do you go about it? So first of all, you go to the proposal template and look at the ethics and security issues table. And you read through it. To understand it properly, you can look at a very, very useful guide information, which is Horizon Europe Program Guide that has a specific section on ethics, but also there is a practical guide on how to complete your ethics self-assessment. The self-assessment is exactly what is the part A in the template, and it gives you information what kind of things qualify as ethics issues and what kind of regulatory framework you have to take into account, etc. And then going through this ethics issues table, preferably with your host institution involved, you mark one by one, tick yes in case these aspects, these ethics aspects relate to your project. It is important to understand that ethics issues are not problems. They are not something to avoid. You are just flagging them and then telling how you are dealing with them. It is not something that you have to hide. It is not something that you have to avoid in your project. Rather, you just do what you need to do as a responsible researcher, how you go about these ethics issues. So once you have ticked the table, for every yes, you need to write something. And you need to write something related to the situation, how you, what kind of ethics issues are there in your project, in your methodology, for example, and then in the second part, how you go about them. So what kind of maybe ethics permits are needed, or what kind of training you will receive from the host institution, etc. And you can use the boxes, the text boxes in part A. You have 2 times 5,000 characters to explain that. So first you will explain the ethics issues in the proposal, let's say in your methodology, and then in the second box you will say how you will go about it. And if this 5,000 characters is not enough room, for example, if you already want to add some ethics permits or you have some preliminary ethics documents that you would like to share, then use a lot of room in part B2 if need be, but only if need be. You don't have to fill it in at all if there are no major ethics aspects in your proposal. If you want to have an idea how evaluators are briefed to deal with ethics aspects, you can look at the video of the European Commission, how to evaluate ethics aspects, but take into account that the research evaluators that I showed on the previous schematic, they do not go in depth about the ethics. But in case you have important, serious or large ethics concerns in your project, the Commission will employ additional evaluators who will look at the ethics part only. And this is not, this will not result in a score. This will not, to a large extent, even influence your proposal's outcome, but it means sometimes that you have to, the Commission will impose additional requirements on you. For example, you might have to submit additional deliverables when you start your project to comply with the ethics requirements. So that much about ethics and security. And now let's jump into document B1 about the 3 chapters, excellence, impact and implementation. So first of all, the chapter excellence is divided into 4 parts. And although the 4 parts are separate, they should form a continuous and interconnected narrative. What is important in your proposal is that you cannot change the headings. So the headings will have to remain as they are, but you can add additional subheadings if you feel that this is necessary. So you have to leave the headings in place and write the relevant text below them. Evaluators sometimes do take into account also text that is outside this part. So maybe you write something about your objectives in chapter 3, but it is not helpful for them. So they will have to go through the whole text. Make sure that you write about what is required in the relevant place so that the job of the evaluator is easier. And the excellence part starts with the most important question: what are you planning to do? So what are your research objectives, and why these objectives are relevant? So how do they go beyond what has been done before, and how why is it important today that you will undertake this research now? So pay attention to this here. What is required under excellence are your research and innovation objectives, not your training objectives. So you can also formulate training objectives, but here under 1.1, you are asked about your research. So you start your proposal writing with focus on the actual research, the whole activities as I mentioned before. So research is, of course, the core of your project. So some tips about objectives. Objectives, really good objectives, will help you write the rest of your proposal. They are of utmost importance. They have to be specific, meaning that they have to really be not about some general goals, but about specifically what you plan to do within your project. They have to be measurable, so it should be one should be able to say whether you have achieved them or not achieved them. Of course, your overall aim of this small piece of research that you are conducting might be to help to cure cancer, but this is not a specific and measurable objective. So in your project, your objective is not to cure cancer, but to maybe develop a specific drug candidate or something like that. So measurable, meaning that you have to have some criteria to indicate whether or not you have achieved them. They have to be feasible within the time frame and the scope of the project. They have to be relevant for the research for the time, and you have to be able to plan achieving them. So altogether, these 5 criteria for objectives make up this very helpful acronym, very widely used, called SMART objectives. So you have to have SMART objectives. And if you really write SMART objectives, it will so much help you to write the rest of your proposal. So some suggestions. With the gray here on this slide, I have mentioned a personal suggestion. So this does not spring from a template, but coming back to what I said about presenting a narrative. So it is useful for the evaluator to grasp what they are reading about. So if you start with a very, very short, like 2 or 3 sentences, introductory paragraph that mentions the main players of this narrative. So you, the host institution, the main objectives. So it will help the evaluators to put the following into context, but don't waste much time, much space on it. It is not a mandatory element, and you don't want to repeat your abstract, for example, that you presented already in part A. So very, very lightly, just you, for example, I, Kristin Kraft, together with the University of Tartu, will, under the supervision of John Smith, I will do this kind of research. So it helps to read the following. Many times I get asked, so what about graphs or illustrations? They are always useful because, again, we come back to the fact that evaluators are human beings, and many human beings prefer visual information, but you don't know exactly what is the type of the evaluator. You have to cater for all types. So add graphs or illustrations only if they really help to convey your message. And if we have time, then later I will show you a bad example of an illustration. So the main mistake that I see in applications that I get to read is that the applicant, instead of facts, they give like statements. So, for example, they state that this problem is very important, but it is up to the evaluator to decide that this problem is important based on the facts that you give. So, instead of saying that my project is in a very important field, you can lead with this statement, but you have to give always proof, arguments, examples, numbers that convince the evaluator that this is actually true. And this is something that is not only about the objectives, but of course the whole of the narrative that you say. Less adjectives, more examples and numbers. And there is a very fine balance here in the between the ambition of the project and the feasibility of the project. And you will be penalized when you err to either side. So if your project is not ambitious enough, so if you do something that will not actually that will not help the research and will not help your future career as a researcher. If the research is not ambitious, not good enough, then of course you will not get the grant. But we often see also proposals that are too ambitious. They propose something that cannot realistically be done in that time space. They propose too many objectives, too many activities. So it is important to focus, to have not to promise too much, because the evaluators will not be impressed by your promising too much. They will rather say, no, this plan is not realistic. So, for example, this comes back to the dissemination later on. We have seen actually applications that promise, let's say, 4 major papers resulting from the 2 years of research. And we've seen also evaluation summary reports that say that this is too much. This is not feasible to be done in this time frame. So instead of maximizing the outputs, rather think of benefit to you as a researcher in the growth of from a recent PhD to individual PI. So it is more the research and the obtained skills rather than a lot of outputs that count. So coming to the second sub-criterion under excellence is the methodology. And methodology you describe here the overall methodology, but also you explain in detail how the methodology relates to your objectives. But you have also some obligatory parts, gender dimension and other diversity aspects, and open science practices. And here again, the Horizon Europe guidance documents, they help you here. So it is not possible to skip these parts, even if you think that they are lesser importance, because the evaluators will evaluate these, and you have to understand what are the gender aspects, what are the open science practices, and the program guide for Horizon Europe is an excellent document to help you understand this. So again, here details are key, and connect the parts carefully. Make sure that your methodology covers all your objectives, and make sure that it is possible to see how the methodology and the objectives are connected to one another. There is always too little room. So people always say that it is not enough pages to give the details. But get rid of the empty sentences, get rid of the empty statements, rather put in facts and details. But always keep readability as one of your main goals, because coming back to the fact that you're writing for evaluators will not love your proposal if you really cram information as tightly as possible. Make it easy and pleasant to read, and focus on details rather than fluffy statements. Methodology is a bridge. It's a bridge between the objectives and the implementation part. So it really should be a continuous narrative that is well thought through. It is not, for example, you should cover with methodology all of your objectives, not some only. And it also gives a very good basis for the training section that we will discuss in a second. Already here, you should mention the major methodological challenges and measures to overcome them, but under implementation, there will be a possibility to do a further risk analysis. And the evaluators have to assess interdisciplinarity, gender dimension, open science practices, so don't hide them, mark them clearly, help the evaluator to find the relevant information with your formatting of the proposal. Now, coming to the third sub-criterion, I would say that this section is one of the most important parts of specifically the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship. Other postdoctoral fellowships also focus on research, on objectives and methodology, but there are few postdoctoral fellowships that have such a strong emphasis on skills development. And here in this section, you really touch the core, the essence of this fellowship. So you have to, first of all, describe the qualifications of your supervisor. This is usually the easy part. You get the information from the CV of your supervisor. You put in all the information that is needed about their about how they are the best person to conduct research on this topic that you are pursuing in your fellowship. How many publications they have, what is the citation record, how important positions they hold and collaborations they have, and also quite importantly, how many PhD students and how many postdocs your supervisor has supervised before. And this gives a little bit of preference to more established, more experienced supervisor, but sometimes you might actually prefer a younger, a more dynamic supervisor who has perhaps more time to supervise you, rather than the very, very important professor who has the most credentials. So there are two ways to go about it. So first of all, you can always highlight the benefits of choosing the supervisor that you have chosen. So if it's a more junior person, you can stress the factors that led you to choose this one by saying that this group is very dynamic. They are just on the verge of doing this, that the supervisor will have a lot of hands-on one-to-one time to teach you, etc. But there is also a possibility that if the supervisor is in the same team with this high shot in your field, that you still have the high shot as the main supervisor, and the more junior person is mentioned only as a co-supervisor to get the full benefit of having all the credentials of this very important professor, which again might be someone that the evaluators know, and their track record might impress the evaluators. So two ways to go. But it's not about the competition about whose supervisor is the most experienced one. And then you go to the training activities. The training activities, they are mentioned, so some here, there is not a bold and red type to show you that this is of utmost importance. So the training has to be has to cover two sides. First, scientific aspects, but then also the transferable skills, the skills that are not specifically related to your research objectives, but they are related to being researcher, to preparing you for your future career as a researcher. And you can do the training in a more formal way. You can take courses, you can attend some workshops, etc. But you can also mention aspects that you will learn one-to-one with the help of the members of the team, or you will go on secondment to another organization to learn these things. So I would suggest, again, it is not a mandatory aspect, it is not mentioned here, but I would suggest to have two subsections to show the evaluators that you have both scientific and transferable skills, and you justify these skills via your needs. You will also have to mention how the European host will benefit from your previous knowledge. So this is also important. When you embark on this fellowship, you already are a great researcher. You have your own track record. You have your own skills that you can bring to this host institution. You have your own network that you will bring with yourself together with to the host institution. So it is not only you absorbing all the information that you get from the host, but it is also you giving back and you maybe mentoring, maybe doing some other transfer of knowledge aspects. And here is also the place where you mention the benefit of your placement or secondment. So some more suggestions. One useful document to read before you write this section are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions guidelines on supervision. And these supervision guidelines, they give you a hint of what is considered good supervision. So what you should aim for, what you should expect. And the training part is a place where you will connect your CV and your objectives, because you can outline some training needs that stem from your previous experience. So, for example, but also you can mention some skills that you already have, most importantly in the next section. So take into account your CV and select especially the transferable skills, but also scientific skills based on what you already have and what you need to become an independent research leader in your field. This section paves floor to the next part, which is the last part under excellence, but my recommendation would be to write it together with the first part of impact. And this is the description of the existing professional experience that you will highlight in order to show that you are the right person to receive this grant and you have enough skills to carry out this grant. And this you should do together with your writing your CV. So you have your CV in part B2. You don't have to repeat it here. Avoid repeating information because you don't have the space to write the same information twice. And again, the evaluator will be bored if they have to read the same thing over and over again in different parts of your proposal. But you connect now the skills that you have, the knowledge that you have with your objectives and with your goal to become an independent researcher. And you also show that the gaps that you might have in your CV, you will fill specifically through this fellowship, specifically through the training that you have described in the previous section. So now is the time to speak about the CV. The CV is given in part B2, but I would recommend to maybe start with writing this. It is not evaluated separately, it is evaluated together with the excellence section. And my recommendation, based on the developments in today's world, is to go for a hybrid approach. So there is something called a narrative CV that is gaining popularity and traction in the research evaluation field. And this means that you are not just giving a list of your achievements or a list of publications, a list of previous positions, a list of any awards, but you explain in a narrative what this means. So I find this extremely helpful in the case of this fellowship. And here in the right-hand column, I have explained some of how to tackle it, so how to go about it. So the CV should be in reverse chronological order, and it should use exact dates. Exact dates are something that are not used everywhere. For example, in Estonia here, we are more used to just giving the year numbers, but in this case, you have to put in exact dates with a day, month, and year. And recommendation would be as follows. You give your CV also the lists of these achievements, of your publications, of your previous positions, etc. But for each of the important ones, you provide additional information. For example, for previous positions, you mention the duties and the skills that you have acquired. You, for each of the important publications, you explain what was the main point and what was your role in writing this publication. When you add information about conferences, etc., you can add what was specifically your role, what kind of skills did you get from participating in this activity. You give context for the awards and prizes. As I mentioned, an evaluator from Estonia would not know the Indian context, for example. They would not be able to understand if a prize is the most desired for doctoral award in India or not, because you have to tell them that. And then it is also useful to explain here your previous experience with academic activities such as supervision and teaching skills, because you can add them to the training program if you haven't had this experience. For example, if you haven't supervised any master or doctoral students, then this is something some activity to participate in a new host institution. But if you have plenty of teaching and supervision skills, it's also useful to mention in this previous section, because then it explains to the evaluator why you're not putting focus on these skills, because you already have them. So it goes two ways to justify the choices that you have made. And now at the end of the excellence section, here are some comments from the real evaluators, from the real evaluation summary reports. I will not read all of them. You will receive the slides later and you can reflect on them. But I point to one of the comments of the negative comments. For example, that the objectives are overly ambitious, for example, or it can be also the other way around, and it is not ambitious enough. So you will have opportunity to read these in detail later. So I will jump to the next chapter, and that is the impact chapter. In Horizon, people find the impact chapter often the most difficult to write. In Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship, this should not be the case, because the impact, first and foremost, the first part of impact is about you. It is about the impact of this fellowship on your future career as a researcher, how it prepares you for your dream jobs and the dream positions, both in academic and non-academic sectors. So you have to write as a narrative, and therefore I urge you to consider it together with a previous section under excellence, to write a narrative about how the activities that you undertake in this project, they help you to achieve your career goals. First of all, this you can present what is your career goal, what is the vision, what is your vision for your future career, and then explain step by step how the research and the training and the other activities prepare you for this future career dream. And link this section with the excellence part, with the training, with specifically the new skills that you obtain, and also the other parts that will come after. For example, the dissemination that will be the second point here. So the section 4 under excellence and the first section under impact should form a coherent little story, starting with the past, your past, how your CV, your track record up to now has been preparing you for this project. And now in under impact, how this project brings you forth to the future. So past and future, following continuously, making sure that the evaluators understand that you are driven, you have goals, and you know how to get to the goals. Impact, while is in itself difficult to write as a narrative as a whole, because the three parts of impact are not, they form like a little bit separate topics. So the second topic under impact is the communication and dissemination. And the communication and dissemination part is something that is common to all Horizon Europe projects. And it is important to understand these words. So we use, in this narrow context of project writing, we use the word dissemination to mean disseminating the outcomes of your project. So you do your research, you receive some research results, and now you disseminate them. And you disseminate them to other researchers or to stakeholders that will use these results. So the other stakeholders, maybe you are studying some aspects related to construction. So maybe construction professionals are also a target group in your dissemination who should know about the results and start using them in their research. Or, for example, if you study environment, maybe the outcomes of your project are something that are needed for policy makers in the field of environment. So you think of who are the users of your project results, and you target specific dissemination activities to bring your results to these people who need them. And first and foremost, these people who will need them are researchers in your field who will gain new knowledge and who will do follow-up research. You should also consider exploitation, meaning putting these results into practice, but only if that is really relevant for your research. So, for example, if you study ancient manuscripts, it's a very important field of research, but there is no immediate action to be taken with the results usually. So you don't have to jump out of your skin to prove that there is some kind of exploitation of the results. And then communication, the word here means communicating about your research. Not only your results, but being a researcher, the importance of environment, the importance of ancient documents, whatever, about the subject of your research. And not only to stakeholders or other researchers, but to a wider community. For example, you explain to young people what it means to be a researcher and encourage them to take up this career. You help maybe educators to make their curricular more science-based, etc. So all kinds of activities that are targeted not at specific users of your results, but the wider community. So dissemination about results to the users, mostly researchers, and communication about everything related to your research, maybe also being a mobile researcher in a different country, etc., and targeted to a wider community. So all of this has to be credible, sufficiently detailed, and again, not over-ambitious. So you don't have to change the world with your communication activities. So choose some good activities that have a measurable impact And the best choice here with a communication really is to hop on the activities that your host is already doing. So for example, if your host is organizing a science festival, you can jump on board of the science festival and there is your communication activity ticked. You don't have to start something from scratch. But this is also a possibility to exercise your strength. So maybe you like doing something, maybe you're very good at doing something, you can put this into practice, but also you can use this as a training tool. So for example, you have never written a policy brief before, but this is again a skill that you as a researcher might need. You can integrate this dissemination and communication with your training. So you can mention it also in the training part and utilize the training here. Dissemination, you should aim for a feasible dissemination effort and mention specific journals and conferences as examples where you will target. So for example, you can say that work package 1 will result in this and this information that I will write into an article and present to this kind of journal because this is a prestigious journal that might appreciate this type of knowledge. Don't forget other target groups for dissemination, as I mentioned, people who might be using your results other than other researchers. And exploitation, indeed, always useful. This part is connected to open science practices. So once you have learned what the open science practice examples are, for example, publishing preprints and participating in open peer review, etc. So you can integrate this into your dissemination and communication activities. Always use social media. We have seen that applications that are not mentioning social media are somehow might receive negative comments, but these trends might change from year to year. There is no like written obligation to have social media, but think of how you can, for example, disseminate your activities in the most effective way. Apologies being over time a little bit. I will look at you, Samrat, now. Can I go on for 5 more minutes? Do you think it's okay?
Yeah, I think it's very relevant, Christine. So far, I think it has been an amazing presentation, very insightful. So I think everybody would agree that we just continue. You complete your presentation, and then we continue with the next session, which is our fellows who are also waiting then to share their insights. Thank you, Christine.
Yes, I actually do believe that the insights from the fellows will be even more interesting than my uh, stampede through through the evaluation criteria and part B, but we'll use your kind permission to continue a little bit and now come to the third part of impact, which is actually the part that is usually understood when we talk about impact. When we talk about impact in Horizon Europe, we usually mean impact of the research activities that we are undertaking in the project. And this is not the primary impact of Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowships. The primary impact is impact on career. But it does not mean that the research that you are doing is impactless. I mean, it is also impactful. And in this section, in section 2.3, you will outline this impact of your research. So already in the first part of the excellence, you introduced your research subject as something important, something that is relevant to research now because of the potential impact that the results might have. And now here in this section, you have 3 types of impact. And you can choose to write about all 3 or maybe 2 of them if one is not relevant. For any type of research, the first and foremost, the scientific impact exists always. So all research will have a scientific impact. So you will explain here under impact section, what is the impact, the scientific impact of your research that you will undertake. Here you are now not talking about the training or the career, you are talking specifically about the research project that you will be undertaking. The second impact that might or might not exist in your project is economic and technological impact. So, for example, if this is something that is exploitable, that you might also want to cover in the 2.2 under exploitation, explain how the results can be turned into business opportunities, you can highlight it here. But also, for example, if you're researching this one molecule, potential drug candidate for tackling breast cancer, for example, then you can also show here that with your tiny contribution to this huge field, you are tackling, might have impact on many, many millions of people's lives. But of course, you have to be careful in giving this type of impact. So first of all, yes, it is potentially impacting millions of lives, but not your project itself is impacting. It is a long-term impact that might happen in 10 years' time. So this is why you are doing it. You are doing it to have this impact on people's lives in the future. But your impact is that you are trying to maximize it. For example, this drug candidate, and I'm purely fantasizing here, you use your communication and dissemination activities to bring it to the interested parties, so it does have an potential for reaching this far-fetched impact. So you can discern between short-term impact, which is within the project duration itself, mid-term and long-term impact. And finally, you might have societal impact. It might, of course, the cancer is again a societal problem, but it also it's not only this kind of impact. For example, you might be improving some policies regarding the conservation of wetlands, or you might be raising consumer awareness that some kind of plastic is adverse, has adverse health effects or something like that. So you have to really think about it carefully, not to oversell, but to put your research in a wider context of these potentially long-term impacts. Evaluators will be annoyed if you say that something that is too far-fetched, like my little drug will have impact on the lives of 20 million people. So don't go there, but you put it in the context that 20 million people are suffering from this from this problem, and my little drug is a step towards cure that is affordable for this type of cancer, for example. If relevant, include all three. Scientific is always there, but economic and societal might or might not be. You don't have to say that this research has no economic impact. You just mention the ones that you have there. And quantify, add numbers. And again, for later reading, you will have some comments from evaluators. And I forgot to mention it previously, that these comments are each taken from a different evaluation summary reports. They are anonymized, and they are not a coherent positive and negative comments from one for one proposal. Coming to implementation, I sometimes see in the applications that I read that the people have started very strong in the excellence part, then they are already running out of steam during impact, and implementation is a sort of afterthought after everything that you have done before. Don't allow this to happen. All parts, although the implementation will give you a smaller contribution towards your final score, but it is very important to get it right. And again, think of continuity, think of connectedness. So the implementation, the quality and effectiveness of the work plan is directly related to the objectives and the methodology. So you have to very briefly present the structure of your work plan, and I will say what the structure is, including deliverables and milestones, the timing, which are presented in a Gantt chart, and you have to add a risk assessment table. It is not necessary to have it in a table, but the table gives a best overview. And the Gantt chart is a mandatory component. So work plan consists of usually of work packages, and work packages each have their own objectives. They might be divided into tasks, and there are deliverables and milestones connected to this work package. So the work package is just a terminology that we use for a chunk of work to be done. So to have an overview and to plan better, we just divide all the activities that are there in the project between work packages. And the usual advice is to have one work package per each scientific objective, and then additional work packages for example, dissemination, communication, management, or in different combinations. This terminology is very widely used. It is worthwhile to familiarize yourself with the terminology, specifically also to understand what are deliverables, what are milestones. And again, the Horizon Europe Program Guide is a very, very good document that explains this to you. But the deliverables play a slightly different role here than in other Horizon Europe projects. For example, only the mandatory deliverables, and they are listed in the work program, and any additional deliverables that are required as a result of the ethics review that I mentioned earlier, only those deliverables have to be submitted actually to the Commission. The other deliverables are there to help you yourself and your host organization to monitor the project. But the deliverables have to be there, the deliverables have to be meaningful, and they must allow you to monitor this. But the Commission does not require each and every deliverable, which is not the case for larger projects where the deliverables are something that you actually deliver to the European Commission as the funder. So the mandatory deliverables that you should mention in your work plan are career development plan, data management plan, and plan for the dissemination and exploitation. But there are other two that I have given here in italics. These are something that will appear in the reporting system automatically. You don't have to mention them in the project. So the work plan has to include all activities. So not only research, but also training, dissemination, communication, management, and secondments and placements. So make sure that you have everything covered. And the deliverables and milestones have to be meaningful, but not too many. Don't add like 25 deliverables and 7 milestones. It's too much. So I would say maximum 2 deliverables per work package, and milestones, they might depend. So milestone is something that is a turning point in your project. So you look at the work plan and you see that to maybe start work package 2, you must have the results from work package 1. You plan to have them at month 6. So at month 6, you have your milestone where you must decide whether you can go forward as planned or you must execute some of your risk mitigation activities. So milestones are decision-making stops along the way of your implementation. In case you are doing experimental research, the milestones are more natural. You will find them more naturally. But in case you are studying humanitarian sciences, then it's much more maybe an effort to come up with meaningful milestones. So you could think of time-bound milestones. So, and finally, the last criterion is the quality and capacity of the host institution. But here I recommend that you start from part B2. There are tables of mandatory tables for each of the organization with general description, role, etc., that are required. And you start by filling that in with facts and then putting these facts into context in your part 3.2. And again, a final recommendation from me, again, not a mandatory element. Don't think that it is a mandatory requirement in the template, but you could end your narrative as you are telling your career story. You could end it with a short paragraph that concludes everything in a nice way, so that the researcher has a feeling that it is a complete story that you are presenting. So this was my very short, very fast, but still over time, a tour of the proposal part B. I will leave these for further reading again, and I will now give floor to other speakers, which is long overdue. Sorry.
My God, thank you, Christine. This was a really an amazing, very impressive presentation. I think I know what you covered now in the little more than 60 minutes, I think is so valuable because I think this is what our audience has been eager and waiting for, to get really very deep insights into the proposal preparation. You also give very good advice on, what to look when you are addressing the evaluators, because these are the people who's going to read the application. So that was, I think, very useful. And also that you have really devoted to all three parts, very, very, equal time and assessment. I think, and I've seen it in the chat. We had one comment saying, please take your time, as much as you need. So we can see that we have even more than 200 participants still with us here. So that shows that it was very useful. So thank you, Christine. Very impressive,
Thank you.
very comprehensive. And we will, of course, share the slides, the presentation. I know that there are a lot of links and templates and sources which, are very useful for our attendees. So don't worry. After today's webinar, we will send you a follow-up with Christine's presentation and also recording of today's webinar, so you can really go through it, in your own pace. But now I'm also very happy that we have two other additional speakers here with us, which actually are the ones who have cracked the Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship. Let me again welcome Dr. Megha Tyagi, who is currently a postdoctoral fellow, a Marie Curie fellow at the Department of Built Environment at Aalto University in Finland, joining us from there. Dr. Megha, thank you so much for joining, and also a warm welcome to our good friend, Dr. Indrajit Sahu, who also has been a Marie Curie Fellow in the past, and he's currently back in India working at the NCCS in Pune. Indrajit, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you. And I would say we a bit share here about your experiences. You have also listened now, of course, to Christine's presentation. So if you see something you would like to add, compliment, we would be very happy. But first of all, we would love to hear a bit about you guys. If you could briefly introduce yourself, a bit about your background, who you are, and what motivated you to apply for this fellowship. What has been your experience being a Marie Curie Fellow, which is a very prestigious fellowship. And so, we were very interested to hear a bit about you guys. So I would say, Omega, if you would like to start.
Yes, thank you, Samrat. Thank you so much for the invitation. And as a brief introduction, I will basically, I'm very conscious of the time as well. So I am a transport professional working in the field of sustainable urban mobility for a combined experience of 10 plus years in industry and academia and industry. I've done my PhD from IIT Roorkee in transportation planning. And I have a background in architecture. I, in fact, worked in Delhi as a junior architect, but my master's from IIT basically opened the world to research and scientific world, scientific writing, scientific researching, and producing valuable research in the field of urban mobility, especially in the context of India. My introduction and my background basically has three components. One is when I was an architect. Second is when I went for my master's. I did master's in architecture but my specialization was urban mobility planning. So I basically transitioned from my career as an architect to urban mobility specialist. I, because I got interested into research, I continued my education during PhD and defended my PhD successfully in 2021. One of the component of doing a PhD in IIT is basically your final year. Your basically your thesis goes to an external examiner, foreign professor, and one of my foreign professor was the German professor from the Technical University Berlin. And she was impressed by my PhD and she invited me for my first postdoc, which was funded by DAAD, the German Academic Exchange Service. And that was an eye-opening world for me because it opened opportunities in Europe, how to collaborate with European researchers and how to write proposals. And it was a very unique postdoctoral fellowship. It was a fellowship of 9 months by DAAD to basically write funding proposals in European Union. So basically, I have never heard such kind of postdoc of doing, not research, but actually spending your entire time writing proposals. That was an eye-opening thing. And this is where I learned about Marie Curie Fellowship and also Humboldt Fellowship. So I applied to two fellowship at that time. The Humboldt Fellowship I've submitted with my German professor. But for Marie Curie, I was basically open to apply for any professors. And one of the professors that I always wanted to work was in Aalto University, Finland. I wrote a email to her. I knew her because I used her theoretical framework in my PhD. So I did not have any connection or anything. I did not meet her in a conference because I defended during COVID. So it was not possible to basically attend any conferences in person. And I was lucky in that case. She replied to my email and she was very interested to apply for the Marie Curie Postdoc Fellowship. And I spent almost 2.5 or 3 months spending more than 12 hours to write the proposal. I am focusing in that because I think Kristin has explained very well in the proposal writing that you have to start early, especially if you're in a full-time position or in a part-time position. My case was very special. My only job was to write proposal. I was paid to write the proposal. So I spent more than 12 and a half hours. I was not enjoying the summer of Europe, but I was actually writing it. And that grill of 2.5, 3 months paid off in a sense that when we submitted it first time, I got a seal of excellence. 86% was my score. So it was the first time I fell short of funding, but it was an amazing experience. It was an experience that taught me how to really think of those small details that Kristin was mentioning, and the review that I got in MSCA was fantastic. Like it was one of the best postdoctoral grant fellowship that you get a very detailed review. I came back to India after that. I transitioned into industry. I worked as an international transport consultant in an advisory firm. And that opened my world to the industry research as well. So the next time, because it was 86% and I could reapply with the same proposal with the same team, it took me around 10 days to basically brush up the weak parts of the proposal. And I submitted again with the same team. And this time, in 5 months, the result came and my score improved from 86% to 100%. And It was just amazing. It was like, I just couldn't believe it that this was possible. But I'll just give a very short brief because all the points Kristin has already mentioned. But the thing I realized after seeing the comments from the reviewers or the evaluators was that this time, in the second time, I was able to connect my project with the real world impact. So I really learned that it is not only, improving or going beyond filling the gap, the academic gap or the scientific gap. It is also filling the gap of what the industry requirements is. So one of the comments that I got from the reviewer was that the candidate doesn't only know about the scientific gaps, but she is very well aware about what is happening in the industry. So that was a huge shift and that improved my application and I got scored 5 in all the three, excellence, impact, and implementation. So that was a huge thing. And I was also one of the first from the Department of Architecture Planning IIT to get this funding. And in the end, the only recommendation, one of the few recommendation I really want to again stress, like Christine mentioned, be realistic in terms of
Mm.
time duration. And please take a leap. The possibilities are boundless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mega. This is amazing, a fantastic and fascinating journey to hear. And I'm also very happy to hear that you explained that you tried it the first time and you learned so much from that, and also the reviews you got, and that helped you to prepare even stronger and outstanding proposal. So this is really good to hear that there is a trajectory, there's a journey to it, and it's not it can happen the first time, but it also cannot happen the first time. So never get demotivated. And I would also ask Indrajit to join us and come into the discussion. And Indrajit, yeah, so you've been listening with me together, for the last hour, and you've been there. You have already given so much advice in the past also, and we're very happy to have you back with us. And Indrajit, just give us a bit introduction about yourself and also your journey with the Marie Curie Fellowship. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samrat, for the invitation, and thanks, Christine, and thanks, Mega. Uh, I will just introduce myself maybe very briefly, then maybe I will spend more time on giving suggestion. Though almost 100%, yeah, or maybe 200%, Christine has already covered everything, each and every aspect so meticulously that is really impressed, and maybe made my job very easy. Nevertheless, I will just share some slides, very few slides, for quick suggestions if they would be redundant, or maybe that they might help the listeners again. So while I will be talking, I will just share the screen, and we were able to see my screen. All right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's working.
Yeah. So currently, I'm actually working as a faculty scientist at the National Center for Cell Science, Pune. And I was actually a Marie Curie Fellow in 2000, from 2017 to 2019. And I was in Israel, Technion, it's an Israeli Institute of Technology. That time, after I finished my PhD in 2015, I joined there and I started writing the Marie Curie Fellowship with Professor Michael Glickman at Technion. And probably I was lucky enough to get the Marie Curie in the first attempt. But I gave actually entire credit to my supervisor and Technion, the European grant team. So they guide me so nicely and amazingly that I could able to made it in my first trial. Anyway, so after that, after I finished my Marie Curie postdoc, then I moved to Harvard Medical School for a short postdoc for 2 years. Then I come back to India and join as a faculty scientist. Nevertheless, that's all about my introduction. And also, I have been, working. And what is the impact, if you can ask me, of this Marie Curie Fellowship? Definitely, you can see there is and good impact on your academic career. So I could able to get an opportunity to work with like Nobel laureate at Technion, and also like a very renowned scientist at Harvard Medical School. Afterward, I got the faculty position in India. And of course, I was apart from that academic success, I could able to know I wanted to be part of this Marie Curie grant writing or with the Euraxis, and I'm still part of it. I'm really enjoying it, and today also I will talk about my experience and give you some suggestions very quickly. So just a disclaimer that all the information or suggestion that I'm giving, it's not any official um, suggestions, but based on my experience and expertise. And since I was a cell biologist, and I have been working as a protein biochemist, so more or less my suggestion would be a little towards oriented to the life science proposal, but definitely be implemented for rest 7 disciplines. So, so the first thing I would like to start with is where are we, or where are you actually, all the applicants who are now applying? Uh, I would say it's already the month of August. Based on my experience, the proposal need to be start thinking about, or formulating in the beginning of April, even before the proposal formally open up in 8th of May. So this is the timeline. Uh, um, could have been help the people if they would have known before. Nevertheless, you are in the month of August, where the verification of your proposal with your peers need to be started very soon, because you only have 1 month left, and your proposal need to be shaped very nicely at this moment. Or if you are a little bit behind the schedule, probably you gear up and do it as efficient as possible and as quick as possible, because you have to submit your proposal before the deadline. You don't have to wait until the last moment of 10th September 2025. And that would be my first suggestion, I would say. Next thing, as Christian very nicely mentioned, that this is a handbook which is always helpful for while writing. Even it helped me a lot during my time. And this is a very fantastic, concise, and comprehensive book. Answer all of your question more, probably. And you download this PDF, 47 pages PDF, and go and read page by page, so that you can improve your proposal writing. Content format, you have already been, listen from Christian. There is a part A, part B, and most likely what I'm trying to emphasize is in the part B. In part B1, actually is all about your 10-page proposal, which carries, the most, I mean, which you should be very attentive on, and spend most of your time. Why? Because, it's 85% time of an evaluator give to this part, and the rest 15% to either the part A or part B2. So you have to be very careful and very meticulous about writing, and very sincere about writing part B1. Then you already have seen this, like in the part B1, you have one excellence part, one impact part, and one implementation part. Doesn't matter how much weightage it carries, it's a 50-30-20, but you have to be accurate and very particular in answering each and every section of the 3 parts. So I would suggest to you, just to help you how to write this proposal, since you have only 10 pages limitation. So this is what my suggestion is to you. If you can separate, like dedicate 6 pages to the excellence part, and 2 or to 3 pages to the impact, or 1.5 to 2 pages to the implementation part. So that will, shape your entire, that will cover the entire aspects, 3 main aspects of your proposal. And these are all the criteria are very nicely described by Kristen, and I'm not going to read them or reiterate them again and again. But just one suggestion, read and read each and every criteria carefully, answer each and every section. Do not leave even one criteria or even part of the criteria, because each and every criteria at the end give you the final evaluation, and that helps for the total mark. Here I have just 7 quick suggestion while you be writing. Maybe it must be covered by Christian, but still I'm telling it again because they're very important. So, pictorial representation of the main goal or the idea of the entire thematic idea of your proposal is sometimes very helpful. As Christian mentioned, that the evaluator, they don't have the entire time. They might be evaluating multiple proposal, or they might be at either in the flight, or they're with a kid, or in the vacation. But and while reading your proposal, so giving a pictorial representation, not a single graphical presentation, maybe multiple, that help the evaluator to understand very nicely in the first glance that what are you were trying to sell, or what are you trying to say over the entire proposal. So made a small graphical representation of your proposal. Then the second point is make some of the important phrases or statements or words, make it bold or italic or underline, just to break the uh, um, uh, monotonous writing. You can follow this. I have been using this, and I have been seeing in multiple proposals, and people very nicely they use this criteria. Even they choose different colors, not too much color, but either bicolor or tricolor, very soothing color to highlight some of the section of their proposal. So it applies for three of the section. Then again, the schematic of your work plan, which comes under the methodology section, is very helpful, and also very it's better readability, because whenever you write in the perspective of how the evaluator will read it, how easily can be grasped by the evaluator. Okay, so a schematic of the work plan will definitely be helpful. And then if you have using novel experiments, technique, something you really want to highlight, you use your color combination or highlighting them or bold, or use different font style as well. Then the next point where I've seen in multiple proposals, people, applicants are writing about their supervisor very superficially. Don't take it as a deep consideration, or take it granted that your supervisor is very famous scientist in your field, and he's a Nobel laureate or something like a very big awardee. Do not underestimate while writing it in a proposal, because based on what you actually write about your supervisor, the evaluator will give you the evaluation. They don't have time to Google it and search about your supervisor and read all the achievements of your supervisor. Until unless you mention the awards, grants, publication, collaboration, you are not going to highlight their credentials, and you are underestimating their ability, and you are losing the big part of your chance, right? So you need to write your supervisor very thoroughly, whatever need to be mentioned, specifically what Christian also mentioned about this very nicely. Then about the grant charts, this is another thing I have been seeing in the multiple grants. The grant chart sometimes is look very small, or maybe having very less information. So don't, please also focus on the grant chart that should have all the important aspects that need to be mentioned. For example, you need to write all the work packages, separate them in tasks, give them different colors so that so that the calculator will know, okay, so there are 3 packages or 4 packages. Then mention about the deliverables, put them in a particular month where the deliverable is expecting, where the milestone is, and where the other outreach program you are planning. So if you put everything together, that gives the entire idea about your implementation plan, and easily can be grasped by the evaluators. Okay, so focus on the Gantt chart definitely on the last part. And then, of course, another thing which I sometimes miss in the proposal is not writing about the risk. So, what are the scientific risk or management risk? You need to find out. I mean, if it is a minor risk or major risk, you write it, and also write some alternative approaches, alternative no, strategy that you are planning to do. So that tells that how critical you are about your proposal, and you know what are the loopholes or the limitations or the risk, but you are ready to face the risk, and you have some plan to overcome that. So do mention the risk as well. Next thing is that I just want to highlight again that the evaluator or the Marie Curie is not going to judge your proposal based on the research outcome. Your proposal is going to develop a new vaccine, or develop a machine that will take you to the Mars in 3 hours. Doesn't matter. It's only the evaluator will only look at the ability of you doing science based on how meticulously you have described your ideas and present your execution plan nicely. So based on that, you are going to be evaluated, not based on how good your science could be solve the entire problem of the world in just 2 years. So remember this. Then few very quick comments. As I said, try to first understand whenever you are trying to write, first understand the Marie Curie portal, the handbook, read the handbook and get acquainted what exactly Marie Curie wants in this proposal, then write that and deliver that. The next thing is that be honest with yourself. Do not exaggerate and do not be over ambitious. Do not lie about yourself that you have this many credentials and you are going to solve a very big issue. Don't be so over ambitious. The next thing is that very precise, very specific, and expressive when you write it in your proposal. Then, of course, take breaks in between writing because otherwise you will be missing out some of the important mistakes in your proposal and you will overlook them. So take break. And another thing is that you write, correct, rewrite, but do not commit any silly mistake at all in your proposal. That reflects and how careful you are when you commit a single spelling mistake. That also reflect in the evaluator that you are not serious, you didn't read your proposal thoroughly. Then the next thing is that start early and submit before the deadline. So that's all I would like to give some suggestions, and good luck all of you, and I would wish you to get the fund and do best in your career.
Thank you so much, Indrajit. I think you have experienced, you've seen proposals, so you're kind of aware, where are the gaps, the mistakes, and I'm very, very happy that, again, kind of, took us a bit through this process again. But I also like to ask Megha, so of course you were in let's say in a privileged situation that you had this grant to write proposals, right? You had 9 months where you really could dedicate, but just for those who have not or not in that position, who are at the same time maybe working or doing other forms of research, like where would you see where to find the support assistance? Of course, Christine gave us very useful links, and also Indrajit, but maybe you could give your view on that, like what would be the best way to find support during the writing process, and what would be your like maybe 3 key messages for those who are currently applying or preparing a proposal, Megha?
Yes, thank you, Samrat, for a very interesting question. One thing that I did not mention earlier was the support of a grant writer, which was a game-changing support for me at that time. Coming from India, I was not aware that in many European universities, there are grant writers whose full-time job is to actually support the potential candidates who are applying to be part of the university. So grant groups are like very huge. There are pre-award grant writing team and there is post-award grant writing team. And in Aalto, I was very lucky through the professor. I got to know that there is a grant writer. So there were not only 2 people, me and my professor, but also a grant writer. So 3 people were there. And these grant writers are not specialists in the subject of the field that they're writing, but they have a very good experience of evaluating and telling experience of going through these proposals. So her support was very influential for me. So that's one thing that I'm pretty sure the suggestion, many of the professors might not even know that such a grant writer exists in their own university. So I would recommend to please ask your professors also to, ask around. The second thing is, as I think Dr. Indrajit mentioned, that take breaks. Of course, that's very important because these are all puzzles. These are all puzzle questions. And as a scientist, we love to solve these puzzles, think as an evaluator in that sense that, okay, no, this is not working. Discuss with your the grant writer also. Do you think as a non-expert person, are you convinced that this thing can solve the issues or the risk that the project might have? So those are the things that I think it will be very useful. And of course, if you have colleague like professors and a network of professors and who are unbiased and ready to help you out, they are very supportive to go through your application as well.
Thank you, Megha. That was very, very important, what you just mentioned. And I'm looking at the time. Of course, we have exceeded, but I think it's totally worth it. And sorry for of course, Christine and Megha and Indrajit that we're taking up your valuable time, but I think our attendees are very much appreciating. And I also bring Christine into the discussion now because Christine has been in the background. I've seen she's been answering, some of the questions. We have quite a few, and some are more general, more broader about the eligibility and the call itself, and some are more in detail because you can see that many of you are already in the proposal preparations. So we cannot answer now all the questions in the Q&A. I would rather like try to take it in this way that where can our candidates, our attendees get their answers? Christine, maybe, there are some possibilities. Of course, the NCPs are there, but, they're also very busy and overloaded right now. So, if I want to get like now concrete answers to my questions, where should I go as a candidate? Christine, and maybe also Megha and Indrajit, you could also come and help in.
Yes, very often, I understand that the number of resources already on my slide is a little bit overwhelming if you're just starting out. But many of the answers are actually there, and I would recommend that you really start by reading the documents. First of all, the template itself gives a lot of information. Then the handbook should be, as Indrajit, I will pass this your assessment to my colleagues who have worked hard to prepare these handbooks. We know they are appreciated, but it's always so good to give feedback. So the handbooks really they are there to give you this information. But at the same time, at the call page, the European Commission itself has also included an FAQ. So many of these questions that might also be answered already by the European Commission and included in the FAQ. So these are the three resources. And of course, NCPs are there. We are overloaded, especially my colleagues in the countries where there are a lot of candidates. They have a huge number of people to respond to. But nevertheless, we are there to answer your questions, and don't hesitate to ask the NCP of your destination country. They are there in place to help you. I think what Megha told is very, very relevant, that there are actually specific grant writing offices in many of the strong universities. This is not to be taken for granted. They are not everywhere, and in some cases, they also have scheduled their time already, so they might not be there always to answer your questions. But utilize this because they really have a lot of experience in universities like Aalto or the major UK universities. They are actually the main people to talk to about the questions.
Well, thank you, Christine. And Indrajit and Megha, what was your experience like with you? For sure, you also had questions during your application process, and where did you find like the answers and the support? And I know that the deadline is approaching, so many want quick responses. But as we know, everybody's very much overloaded with at this stage, like the NCPs, but also the peers and so Indrajit, what would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, what I did in my time, since I had like a very fantastic grant writing center in the Technion, I always just hop off and talk to them and ask very few and silly questions even in the beginning. And we also had a training session 2 hours training for probably 2 months every week. So that really helped us to answer all the questions. So maybe that was very helpful to me at that time, and maybe this is still going on in Technion in Israel. I'm not sure each and every institution might have this facility to answer all the questions from the applicants. But sometime watching some old videos or from experience from the Marie Curie people, and also from this webinar from Euraccess or some more webinars might help to answer the questions, and the handbook that I mentioned and also Kristen mentioned that might have almost all answers of the questions. And otherwise, even I also keep getting a lot of questions on my LinkedIn profile. I also try to help people whoever I just grab an answer out of getting a little bit time to answer their very questions if I can. Maybe that should be our kind of responsibility to help those applicants who are not getting all the facility that they should have been getting from the institution or from the host or from the host supervisor. That's what I think. So I keep on helping people by this way as well.
Yeah, there's also, of course, the Marie Curie Alumni Association, which has wonderful members in India, but also outside of India, who are always very happy and open to help, like candidates. So, Megha, just maybe you want to also mention something regarding that.
Yes, I think all the points that already been mentioned. Just one more point is host institution in some of the also not maybe not all universities, but there some host institutions also have European Union proposal teams. So who are dealing with different type of, so there is a national fellowship teams. Those are teams which caters to not only the potential candidates but also the professors who are applying in EU projects. So those teams, even though they might not have grant writers, but those are the also teams that could be contacted for more information.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's something which we have heard now that, you know, there are teams who help to prepare grants. There's, of course, your supervisor who maybe knows, or you can ask, your peers, you can ask Indrajit and Megha, you can reach out to them and ask, where you can get more support. But as Christine and Indrajit and Megha have mentioned, like a lot of information is there out already by the commission, by the MSCA. So just go there and read very carefully and you will see that most of your questions will be answered. I take this opportunity to say thank you to our speakers and, of course, to our attendees who have been with us here almost 2 hours. I see we're still more than 150. That's really great. It's quite getting late in India. People might have to go home, leave their offices. And of course, it's also a kind of lunchtime now in Europe, I assume. So maybe people are getting a bit hungry. And so I would say thank you so much for joining. I would like just our speakers to, for 1 second, I would like to take a screenshot, so that we have this as a memory, in captured. Thank you
Yeah,
so
sure.
much. Thank you. And yeah, all the best for those who are preparing or writing right now. And we hope, this webinar has been helpful and that you will, write a very strong competitive proposals. And once again, thank you so much to our 3 speakers. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you,
So much.
Samrat. Thank you, Christian and
Thank you.
Megha. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
all.
you very much
Bye-bye.
for listening. Good luck with your proposals.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good luck. Bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.